Aditi, we're live now.
Right. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to today's session, which is part of our webinar series that we have been doing over the last 2 months. Today's session is going to be, about parents' perspective on how they have been a support to their students while studying in the US. So before we begin the session, I will request you guys to use headphones because that works just better for audio quality. Make sure your cameras are switched off and your mics are on mute so that it doesn't disturb the panelists while we have the discussion. Also, if you have, and I hope that you guys have lots of questions, we would love to answer those questions. So please, if you're joining in from the Zoom, please add your questions into the Zoom chat box. If you are watching this session on Education USA India's YouTube channel, please put that into the comment box and we will take up those questions at the end of the session. I will also request the audience to keep the questions relevant to the discussion that we are having today, right? As we start the session, we will also be sharing different resources that will be helpful to you as you begin, your journey. So first of all, a very big congratulations to everyone who's joining in today, who has been admitted to a US university, is excited to begin a new academic journey. I remember I was equally excited when I got accepted in a US university. So I hope that you're also pumped up. Before I forget, as I said in the beginning, that this session is part of the webinar series that we are doing specially for admitted students. So our next session, which is the last session in this series, is going to be next Thursday on 28th of July, which is going to focus on strategies to develop, when you plan your return back to your home country. So I will encourage everyone to also register for that session and come in and listen to students who have successfully returned back, have started their journeys back here in India. Now, if you are someone joining in and listening to our session for the first time, I'll take a couple of minutes to tell you what Education USA is and what we do. So Education USA is a US supported is a US Department of State supported, which is US government supported organization. Our mandate is to provide you with accurate, comprehensive, current information, and most importantly, unbiased information. Education USA is basically, it's a network of student advising centers. There are more than 430 plus such student advising centers that are spread across the world in more than 175 countries and territories. In India specifically, there are 8 centers that are located in 7 cities, which are hosted by various organizations. There are 4 main organizations under which Education USA functions through. We have a center in Chennai, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Mumbai, and New Delhi, which comes under the umbrella of US India Education Foundation, USIF, which is a binational entity that manages the Fulbright fellowships here in India. We have a Bangalore Center, which is managed by Yashna Trust. We have Ahmedabad Center, which is managed by the Indo-American Educational Society, IAES, and we have the US Center in Hyderabad, managed by the Y-Axis Foundation. As I said, we are, Education USA is the official source on any information that is related to higher education in the US. One of the most daunting process that, all of you have already gone through is the application process. It can be overwhelming, it can be challenging, and to help students navigate this application process, what we have done is we've kind of broken it down into simpler steps. As you can see on this slide, to make a better sense of it, we've divided this into 5 different steps. We do various sessions where we have advisors talk about this. We have university representatives come and talk about, what does it mean to research a right fit? What does it mean? What kind of criteria go into finding the best fit, where, universities and programs that you want to apply to? What are the different avenues to consider when it comes to financing your education? Understanding the different components of your application and the, planning that goes into developing a good quality application. And the last two steps of, how to, what are the main steps of applying to student visa and, eventually preparing for your departure. So actually today's session is, part of the step 5, where you're getting ready to depart to go to your US universities. Now, there are, all of you guys who are joining in today, hopefully have been admitted to the US universities, and we would really, really like to keep in touch with you. And there are different ways, different means by which you can do that with Education USA. You can, we would love to have you, to be present on different panel discussions that we do, various alumni fairs that, you can attend, where you can represent the university that you're currently going to be enrolled in. We would love to have you during our International Education Week. We would love to hear about your application journey. That's going to be something really, really important and helpful for the prospective applicants. So share your success stories through My Education Story on our social media. If you are someone who is, into writing and maybe want to pen down your experience of how that application journey was, or even after once you are at a US campus, what have been your experiences as an international student? We would love to read those stories as well. So, I will encourage you to find out which is the best way for you to, engage with Education USA, and, please reach out to us for that. The slide gives you basically contact information of all the 8 Education USA centers that are spread in India. You can take a screenshot of this and keep this, information handy, handy whenever you want to get in touch with us. Now, with that, we are going to start with today's session. I'm really excited because we have an amazing panel for today's session, and I hope that you are equally excited as well. So let me quickly introduce the panel to you without wasting any time. We have Mrs. Melanie Nair. Mrs. Melanie Nair is a homemaker. She's also a business associate to a property consultancy firm called Perpetual Estates. She handles the back office and along with that admin duties as well. Her daughter, Tashna Nair, is currently pursuing a Master's of Arts in Television, Radio and Film at Syracuse University in Syracuse, New York, which is a very, very interesting program that she is enrolled in. We also have Mr. Julius Nair. He's Tashna's father. Mr. Nair is the business head of the property consultancy Perpetual Estates, which is a real estate consultancy firm, and he's been operating for the past 25 years, pan Mumbai for very niche clientele and mandated properties. Then please welcome Mrs. Kavita Singhania. We go up here. She's primarily a homemaker who started graphic designing customized coffee table books, and she's also a baker who loves baking mud pies under her home brand called Simplicious. I hope I pronounced that right. She's also, she also manages retail wing of her family's leather export business called Oriole. She's health conscious, has diligently pursued weight training, walking, and now yoga daily for several years. She is a constant mentor to everyone she knows. She is mother to Unnati, who's pursued her BA in business economics and psychology at the College of Worcester, and Vanishka, who just graduated in May with a bachelor's in science in finance and business analytics from the University of Rochester. Both her daughters have received partial aid. Unnati is in fact Education USA advisor with us at our Kolkata center, and Vanishka just started working in economic consulting in the Brattle Group, Boston, using her optional practical training visa allowance. Let me go back again. And we have Mrs. Ramya Krishnan Anil. She has an MBA in finance from Mumbai and has almost 20 years of corporate work experience. Her last assignment was with Australia and New Zealand Banking Corporation as their head of the marketing, communications, and corporate responsibility. Her son Vedant is a rising senior, double majoring in finance and real estate with a minor in economics at Kelly Business School, India University, Bloomington. Let me see if we have our final panelist joined in. But if he is, if he can if he's able to join in today. We would also have Mr. Manoj Awad. He is a chef and has worked in Bermuda Islands for over 11 years before he returned back to India. He's currently located in Nasik. Mr. Awad's daughter went to UT Dallas for undergrad with major in physics and received a full financial aid and additional stipend every month. Now she's graduated this May and has decided to join UT Dallas MS PhD integrated program in mechanical engineering, which is exceptional. She has received 100% financial aid along with assistantship positions. So welcome to our panel. I will request you guys to please switch on your cameras so that we can begin our panel discussion for today. Great, thank you. Oh, I also see Mr. Manoj has joined in. That's great. All right, so we're going to talk about various topics today. And, during this time, students, please keep, putting your questions in the chat box. We'll take those at the end of the session. So to begin with, my first question is going to be for all of you. Application process is overwhelming, whether it's for graduates, applicants or undergraduate applicants. So as a parent, what was your role in supporting your child's pursuit of higher education? And for this question, I would like to start with Mrs. Ramya. If you can unmute yourself and tell us how was that process for you?
Yeah, hi everyone, and like Aditi said, big congratulations to all of you. I think if you are attending today's session, you've kind of taken care of this initial big roadblock of the application process, shortlisting of colleges, the works. I think in terms of the support that I gave my son as a parent at this stage was, I think, recognizing initially that yes, this was a dream he wanted to pursue. And yes, then the next step was actually looking at countries to begin with. Why choose the US vis-a-vis, say, Canada, vis-a-vis Australia? That was the second important decision that we took. And yes, a lot of research went into that. And I think I helped him with that as well. And then once we decided that, yes, the US seemed the best in terms of providing the kind of undergrad education that we were looking at, in terms of flexibility, in terms of the exposure, in terms of all the activities involved. And of course, through meetings, several meetings that we had with USIEF, which was very, very helpful, we then had to zero in on the colleges. So that was an important part. And we did look at various colleges, depending on the majors that he wanted to look at. At that point, he was interested in business as well as biochemistry, completely different streams. But yes, through the College Board website and the Peterson's website, and some very, very sensible practical tips that we got from Ryan at USIEF, we zeroed in on the colleges that seemed a good fit to Vedant in terms of the SAT score, then his IB score. He did his IB diploma, so that had given us a fair bit of exposure to the way the whole process worked. And finally, of course, the funding, which is very critical. So which is the public university that offers scholarships? Undergrad scholarships are very few and far between. So it was important to get that in early. And the whole application process, the early decision process and your standard process. So we had to do that. I think through the journey, it was a collaborative process. And yes, each of these steps, I think I was actively involved in that stage.
Perfect.
So I think I'll let the others.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ramya. If I can move to Mrs. Singhania, would you like to, share some insights?
Yeah. So for me, it was like a very big challenge to send my daughter to the US to study, because she's the first child in the family and it's like quite far away. So my father-in-law, my husband, they were all very, very reluctant. And then I also sort of gave up. But then my daughter was like, if you have to support me. And then it was my dream as well that she studied in the US. So we really put our foot down and we struggled, and then finally came the challenge, the biggest challenge of the budget, because like, as you know, the US education is very, very expensive. So we were looking at aid then. So we have to change the whole list of colleges we had written so that it would fit in our budget. And I felt that US education is like uniform throughout the country more than the, like in India, we have this theory of sending our children to the Ivy League, but I don't believe in that. I feel that the education is uniform throughout the country, and it's like whichever college your child goes to, like he has to leave a mark on it. So we just saw the college which my daughter wasn't even sure what she wanted to study. So then we looked at the College of Worcester, because we had a few children who were going there from La Martiniere. My daughter is from La Martiniere. And then we just exchanged views. We asked the parents, and then we thought that it was a very nice college. And then we just looked at it, and then my daughter was admitted there. And she was sort of quite happy because she just tried a few combinations, and then finally she knew what she wanted to do. So
that's great. That's great, Mrs. Singhania.
Yeah.
If I, and there will be more questions that, I would want to, deep dive into, especially finances. So I would like to ask, Mr. and Mrs. Nair, how was, your role in that application process? Because it's different for graduate applicants, right? They already kind of have an idea what they want to study. It's not so much about choosing the majors and minors. So will you please share your experience of your role in the application journey?
Hi to everyone, and thanks to EducationUSA for having us on this panel. Okay, so from her 12th standard onwards, we always knew that she has something in her mind to go on for a further education after her graduation, possibly only abroad. And then she was making her own plans or whatever it was. But she was confiding in us. But at the same time, as a parent and as a father, I knew that she had certainly had plans to study abroad. And then slowly and steadily, I could make it out that she was planning for the US. I was not much for it, but seeing the child's determination to pursue her further studies in the US made me put the sort of the thinking hat, because she was determined that she would want to go to the US and try it out going to the US. That's it. Because initially the thought that comes to you are many things, right? Like finance, how she will settle, new place, we are not with her, girl child. Possibly we have not left her out of for so much, and blah blah, various thoughts which crosses the parents' mind. But along the way, since my daughter did her part of the research and started updating us on sort of various issues, so then we started playing the role of, I would say, number one would be that confident positive push. I would put it as that way. Confident positive push. What in my language I would mean is that you have thought what you want to do. So now let's start the process. I felt because as parents, we are like not aware of anything at all. So you want to go, fair enough, but let's start the process. So with the confident positive push, we, through a like-minded friend of ours, a very close friend of ours, we came across, obviously, EducationUSA. And after a lot of guidance, interviews, webinars, personal interactions, solely by my daughter, I would say that, with EducationUSA and her research into the process, or I would say after almost a year and a half, then came the second thought. After the positive push thought that there is no looking back. Now there is no looking back. I think you should just go for it. because that's what the efforts and everything that she had put in. So what I would say is aligning with the thought process of the child. Since I noticed that my child was wanting to do something which she would love to keep doing, so that then we aligned with the thought process of the child, because our thought process was never there. That's it. But since she was determined and so we aligned with that. And what I understand from this, that you needn't give your thought process, your mind process, and sort of sometimes play as a spoiler, because in today's time, a lot of online knowledge is available to them, which sometimes we may not understand. That's it. So
That's
if my
great.
child turned towards me for asking any questions, then I would respond to the same, but never tried and giving her any unwanted advice or whatever. So
Great.
that was the role that we tried to play. Number one was the confident, positive push. We started with the process, and then that was like, now let's not look back.
I
That's
think it's important that you're pointing out how support is important. So let's wrap up this question by asking Mr. Awad, what was your role in the application process when your daughter was applying?
Hi, good evening, everybody, and thank you for inviting me. My role in application process was vital for my daughter, because initially it was as same, like it was very challenging for us as like me and my wife, that to allow her to go away and study but she was very determined and she wanted to go out abroad, and she wanted to study in USA. She was very determined, and but there is so much of pressure of studying here, like 11th, and like she was doing A and AS levels, so she had so much study and so much workload, so she couldn't really go out and decide, like looking for the universities and all the stuff. So I tried to do it myself. Me and my wife, we tried to do it, and there is so much of like different opinions everywhere. We were all confused, should we send her or not? And we were we didn't know anybody personally whose child is studying abroad or in USA. So it was difficult for us in the beginning. But after meeting Education USA, we did get very clear vision, like how should we go about it, and then the application, how to shortlist the universities. Like in the beginning, we were only looking at the rankings and high rank universities and hoping to go send her to Ivy Leagues, and like in meanwhile, then we realized that that is not the right way to go about it. It's we have to find a perfect match for her. At the end, we did find a perfect match for her when she got full funding and everything. So the challenges are always there, but with the help of Education USA, I think a lot of things get worked out.
That's great. Thank you so much. I think it was very important to, hear that as well, that where to look for the information is a very critical aspect. So I'm going to move on to the next section actually now about academics, because a lot of the students, who are joining in today probably have questions about that. So we know that, there is a difference between knowing something and doing something. All these students have looked up what the education system in the US looks like. They have researched, in this last year, what to expect. But it's going to be a very different experience when you actually arrive on campus and start taking your classes, right? So, Mrs. Ramya, I'm going to ask you this question: that can you shed some light on how your son dealt with adjusting to the US academic system, whether it is choosing or the majors or changing their majors? As you said, he was also interested in biochemistry, and what was your role as a parent in that process?
Yeah. I think, yeah, that's a very critical element of the whole education process in the US, which is quite different from what we see here in India. So I think an important part of it is for the child to be mentally prepared for the kind of flexibility that the system offers, because we're so used to very regimented ways here in India. And the beauty of the US system is the sheer flexibility in the choice of subjects you can pick up, the combinations you can do. You can pick up hobby subjects, things that you're just interested in knowing more about, apart from, of course, without forgetting your core purpose of being there, which is your major. So, and the system does afford a lot of flexibility as you go along as well. So, Vedant did his ICSE till class 10, and then after that, he did his IB. So, at the IB, the International Baccalaureate, there is already a certain method that is followed, which is not very different from the US flexibility. So they tend to research a lot, they tend to write a lot. It's all original stuff that they have to write. So, there is a joke that it's almost like doing a PhD, because your thesis has to be completely free of plagiarism and all those kind of aspects. And I think that set him up very well for the US system to begin with. A very critical element, and I would really request all the students on this panel, please, to keep this in mind once you go to college, go to campus. The choice of the subjects that you take in your first year, don't get too ambitious, because we Indian kids are used to overachieving. We tend to think, let's try and take on as many credits as possible, maximize it. Maybe we can finish our degree earlier, it's then less expensive because it's of 4 years, you do it in 3 years, 3.5. Don't make that mistake. Pace yourself, choose subjects very carefully, because that grade that you get in your first semester pretty much sets the momentum for the rest of your semesters. So choose wisely. All universities have academic advisors. Sit down with them, tell them of your interest areas, tell them the kind of efforts you are willing to put in, because every child has a different threshold. And plan your path. There are certain majors that require certain prerequisites that you have to do irrespective. So if you're doing a business degree, you will have to do calculus. You may have hated it back here in your grade 12, but you have to do it. So make sure you take on 101 classes if necessary, because they explain it in a very nice, simple, basic way. And a very big resource, very useful resource I found was the Kelly website, the Kelly Facebook page, the Kelly School and Indiana University Facebook page, where there is collective wisdom of so many parents on the choices that their students have made. So, for example, they will actually tell you, there will be parents who will be talking about additional tutorial support in terms of peer tutorials, expert advice, and all that. But you will also have some parents who will actually have warnings like, guys, please don't take these 3 subjects together in the first year. You may want to finish it off, like eat the frog first thing in the morning, but please pace yourself. So I think very critical is to keep your eyes and ears open to all these sources of information. The choice of the subject, the choice of the professor, because very often there is also a tool called Rate Your Professor, where you can actually look up a particular professor for a particular subject. You see broadly how his class is faring, his or her class is faring in terms of grades and scores, and make a wise choice even on the professor. So there could be some profs who will have most of the class sitting at the bottom. You will have some who typically give out A grades, A plus. So then make your choice accordingly. And the key is to register for your classes very early, because they all get taken very fast. They're huge, big universities, but there is also a huge demand for the best professor and the best subjects. So try and get in early in the game and lock in your subjects early enough. And yes, and there's one more bit about transferring of credits that I missed mentioning. So when you pick college credits, you can also transfer some credits if you do AP exams or if you are an IB student, which will allow you to opt for additional credits in other subjects that may not necessarily be linked to your core. So just keep a few of these things in mind. And like I said, keep your eyes and ears open, speak to your seniors. Please heed to every bit of advice that you see on various social media from other experienced students, traumatized students, parents, the works, and
Yes.
it's pretty straightforward after that. Yeah.
And so that's a really great kind of segue into the next question that I'm going to ask. But it's important to point out, as you said, Mrs. Ramya, that things take time, for you to get adjusted to the system. So don't rush into it. Take your time. Remember that, for especially undergraduate students, you're going to be there for 4 years. So that's a very long time, So take your time to adjust to the system and don't rush into just performing. So that, kind of takes me to the next question, which is, I'm going to ask this to Mr. Awad, that getting used to class structure, various types of methods of instructions that kids are not maybe used to here in India. Even the fact of the course load that they end up choosing to take every semester. This can take some time. Every class has a different structure. It's not just a lecture based class, right? There are different ways of how the professors conduct their classes. So, Mr. Awad, what was your child's experience? Can you share that? Did they feel maybe more pressure in the first semester, but using resources, they were able to kind of ease out that pressure the next semester? Did they end up changing their majors? Can you share something about that?
Yes, definitely. My daughter Roma, when she entered her first semester, um, it was challenging for her in the beginning to enroll in the classes, because there's actually, when there is nobody you can ask to personally. Everything, all the information is there, but it is on the portal of the university, on the website. So you have to go look at yourself. You got to go find, you got to sign up your classes yourself. So she was not used to it in the beginning. So she had difficulty getting the right classes. Like sometimes the morning classes, she likes morning classes. So they used to get filled very early. So she had to opt for like 8:30 p.m. class in the evening. And we were also not very happy her going to university in so late in the night. So that was the thing in the beginning, in the first semester. And but she got used to it after a few months. Like after first semester, she was okay. And even her major she changed after first semester. Like she went in as she was very keen on learning physics when she entered. So she wanted to do her career in physics. But once she started her bachelor's in physics, she got bored. She said, I am not liking it that much. I like the applied physics more than theoretical physics. So she went to some of the counselor in the university and asked them, okay, this is how I'm not liking this as I thought I would, and what should I do now? So then they guided her well, and she switched to mechanical engineering for her next semester. Fortunately, because she had done AS and A level, so she had few credits already. So she didn't lose that one semester extra because of the credits, and she was able to finish her degree within 4 years, even after switching. So that helped, and that is the flexibility we really happy about when going to in USA, because we don't get that flexibility in India. That is there, like you can change your major after a semester or two. So that is one thing she's very happy about, and now she's pursuing her doctorate in mechanical engineering. So yeah.
So I think what I like, from what you have mentioned is not just the fact that, the US education offers you the flexibility, but also, being honest about that there is a learning curve, that, some students will take time to realize what is working for them, what is not working for them, and learning out of that experience. I think that is what really makes you independent in terms of, critical thinking, independent decision making. So I think that is also equally a very important point. Um, Now I'm going to move on to ask a next question to Mrs. Singhania. And this is something that Mrs. Ramya touched upon a little bit, but I would like you to elaborate, more on this. So we know that, the role of an academic advisor is very important. It's very critical in the student's academic journey. So can you actually describe, for students who are joining in today, what is the role that academic advisor actually plays? And, how did you understand that from your child?
Um,
Sorry, I think you have put, you're on mute. Yeah.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Yeah, so I feel the role of an academic advisor is the most crucial in guiding the child to go abroad and study. And I could just give logical advice to my children. And for that, like they took the help of other students who had gone, and also like professional people like your center and others. So like I couldn't really guide them much on it. So I gave them professional help.
Okay, great. And I'm sure that, so the role of an academic advisor is so critical in terms of, especially for undergraduate students who are maybe not decided what their majors are going to be, to kind of, chart out that trajectory of how their course is going to look like in the next 3-4 years. And, having those in-depth discussions with your advisors, even talking to the faculty members that you're taking classes with, is going to really help you out with figuring out, whether you want to try and major in 2 majors, maybe 2 subjects, 2 disciplines, or maybe major in 1 and minor in 1. Maybe you started off your academic journey with, hoping to major in 1 discipline, but realize that you're more interested in another one. So try and kind of, keep yourself on track by asking questions that, is this class helping me? Is this what I want to learn? Is this what I want to explore? And if it is not something that you want to, then talk to your academic advisor, figure it out, what is it that you can change in the upcoming semester or upcoming years, and accordingly carve out your academic trajectory. Thank you, Mrs. Singhania, for that. Mrs. Ramya, I have a next question for you, to kind of give us some examples of what university resources you thought were very, very relevant to when it came to making those academic choices, whether it's classes or things that are related to academics.
Yeah, actually, like I just mentioned earlier as well, I think a very, very important and critical resource is the academic advisor, who Kavita also mentioned. But more importantly, I think most universities also offer you a blueprint of sorts, which will take you to, which actually puts down the path to your final degree. So they will actually have a semester wise suggestion of subjects that you can take, the activities you can enroll in, the workshops that you should be part of, the prerequisites. The entire path is charted out for you. And it is up to you to actually make those choices. Of course, it's like a flow chart, right? So if you do this is the stream that you will go down. If it is, if you pick up these 2 subjects, this is the stream. So one very important resource is what the college itself provides you, which is a blueprint of sorts in terms of the academic path. The second important resource is your academic advisor. Once you have that with you, you can actually sit down with her and go through the plan and work out a path that works for you specifically, because it's very specific and very unique to each individual in terms of fitment, in terms of additional classes. Like I also said, I found personally, being part of the Facebook pages of my university and specifically Kelly School of Business, I thought that was very helpful, because there is very practical information, and there are a lot of practical tips that other parents and other children share on that on the Facebook page. So I found that very useful. And apart from that, of course, keep talking to your child all the time, because very often, though we send them away at 17 and 18, and all of us talk about trust, and all of us talk about how mature they are once they go there, finally they are children. So very often they want to bounce off their ideas, off their parents, get some comfort in terms of the choices that they're making. Ma, do you think this makes sense? Or if you say, Vedant, this just doesn't make sense. I don't think you should do this. Try something else. So keep that dialogue ongoing. Very often you will hear, Ma, you won't understand. This is different. The US system is different. Please be prepared to hear that. But parallelly, I think keep talking to other parents. Look up the social media sites, which do give a lot of very honest information. And yes, trust that your child will take the right decision. Another important thing to keep in mind is, like, just like I think Manoj mentioned, if your child feels there needs a mid-course change or correction, please be supportive, because the child knows best which way it's headed. So be supportive of the kid who has made up their mind to make it, maybe changing course and finding something else that is more interesting. And I think the biggest resource is the child itself, because they are also worried. As much as we want them to succeed, I think no one is more worried about their success than the child itself. So they are going to keep looking for information and doing stuff. So I think very often we just need to help them justify some of their decisions, just guide them, steer them, nudge them a bit. But yeah, these are some of
That's
the
great.
sources of
That's
information.
really helpful. Um,
Yeah.
Now I think I want to move on to a very important aspect of this academic journey, which is the managing the finances. And to begin with, I'm going to start with Mr. Nair and Mrs. Nair. That we know that finances are very critical aspect of the students' academic journey, right? And the parents play a very important role in that. Most of the times, financially supporting them and giving that opportunity to study in the US. So I wanted to, kind of understand how that process has been for you in terms of how did you find the information on simple things as how did you transfer the fees, how much were the for the fees, what was the university system, was that process difficult for you? What kind of help did you get from the university, maybe from the registrars or the bursar's office? And any tips for the parents who are here today, for them, what can make this process easier?
So, going into the finances part, obviously financing is very important, and that's what I assured my daughter. No worries, I'll be obviously going in for a loan. So that's the first thing that I did some time back. I got my loan approved so that the hurdle is crossed, apart from my basic finances. That's it. But as far as since there's hardly a month or almost 45 days that my daughter is there in the US, but I found the systems pretty smooth. I mean to say, it was not very challenging sort of.
Mhm.
So basically, if I can give you with substantiate that with an example, that for payment of fees, basically the college or the university protocol, all the universities will be having their different protocols, yeah, or the rules. That's it. So basically, the college university protocol or rules may have to be followed. Then the university that my child is going to is, of course, Syracuse University, New York. The university has an online process.
Mhm.
So basically, all the universities will be having, I presume, that online process wherein the child has been given a user ID and password. Okay, and the same has been shared by my child with us, wherein we can access the account and find out the billing amount. Like, for example, now the billing has started. It will be a bi-monthly or quarterly billing that will take place over 3 to 4 quarters. That's it. So once we access the account, we find the invoice there, the billing amount there, which is mentioned to us, and the due date, what is mentioned to us. So after clicking on making those payments thing, it gives you the modes of making those payments.
Mhm.
So in the as far as our university was concerned, we had the option of either Flywire or Western Union, one or two more options. So the options are pretty well and neatly mentioned there. Once you choose the mode and the fees, that is the amount in dollars, you have to pay to the university then as per the present rate. whatever is the present prevailing rate. Of course, we took the option with Flywire, which on filling up certain details generates a form with remittance reference number, and which you can pay either via online or mobile banking, or remove the printout of this remittance reference number, which is a 1 or 2 page printout, and visit in person to your bank and make payments via NEFT or RTGS. So like I was a little bit concerned, if you have to make a payment of 10 lakhs of rupees or 15 lakhs of rupees or 5 lakhs of rupees, immediately you want to test check and find out whether the university has got the money or not. So initially I did the same thing, but I did not do it online. I tried my banking route of NEFT and RTGS, where you have to physically fill up the banking form, and I just first transferred $100. Once it is received by Flywire, they take 3 business days, and after which everything is by email. They email to you that we've received the payment. Subsequently, it goes to the university, and the university acknowledges via receipt, via email, and they also see to it that they put it on the portal of theirs. So with the account which you hold, so first and foremost, we've possibly thought that it is very complicated, but then following the process, it's pretty smooth. You have to just follow the process properly.
Great.
That's it.
Great, thank you. And I would just add that every university might have slightly different system. Usually
Yes.
the bursar's office or the treasurer's office will have that information for you. If you can't find something, the student can actually go to these offices and find out the information.
Yes.
Can I request Megha or Mirin to mute one of the audience that has unmuted its mic? It's a lot of disturbance. Yeah, thank you. And so you just, from the parents' perspective, you just want to make sure that the students understand how this process is going to go, what kind of information is required. And, at a graduate level, things are slightly different. For an undergraduate student who's just 17, 18 and just starting off, everything is new. It might be a little overwhelming. And so hence it's important that, you maybe go to the international students office if you have some questions, you can't relay the information to your parents correctly. They will certainly help you out and, find a midway where you can find that information of how to transfer the money, so on and so forth. Now, I'm going to move on to the next part of the finance management, and it's going to focus more on the undergraduate students because, I will come back to you, Mr. and Mrs. Nair, about this, but graduate students seem to deal with this much better. So my question to Mrs. Singhania and Mrs. Ramya is that managing daily expenses, monthly expenses is a very important aspect. It can take some time figuring out actually how much, the student needs every month, right? So I want to know how frequently, and you don't have to give us the details, but just to get us, give us an idea about how frequently do you have to, send money. And I'll end this question with, were there SOS messages from the kids that, you haven't sent me money, I have no money to buy my eggs and bread. So, if you can shed light on that, how was that process for you to figuring out, how the students' monthly, daily budget was, and how that, you took into account in your calculations for the budget. Let's start with Mrs. Singhania.
So Aditi, just a very small point on the finance thing. So
Sure.
Both my daughters went to different colleges, and for Unnati, the financial aid was for all the 4 years, but for Vanshika, it was every year it had to be renewed. Mm-hmm. So the children have to be very careful about the time they get emails. So then they again have to reapply for the aid. So that they have to keep in mind. And also during Corona, my younger one had asked for additional aid. And the college provided that, as far as we paid just $3,000 for one semester during the Corona. So in case of emergencies, you can always ask them for more aid. And now coming to the daily expenses, we used to send a fixed amount of money to my children every month. And apart from that, they were doing a little bit of part-time jobs, which they kept in a different account. So normally the children have a check-in account, but my girls had opened a savings account. So whatever money was left from the what we send them every month went to the savings account, and also what they saved from their jobs also went to that. So that way the children also learn to save. So for my girls, like, they never told me, you never send us money. They never asked for money. So whatever we send them, they were like managing in that. And I think that should be it, that they should learn how to manage their finances. And never, like, they never really asked us for more money. Never. Not in once in 4 years did both my daughters do it. And I'm so, so proud of them.
That's great. So no SOS messages from
Not at all. Not at all.
All right. Mrs. Ramya, will you please respond to this?
Yeah, sure. So the way we set it up was, I think, just before I get into the actual mechanics of how it worked. Uh, for a lot of students who are getting scholarships from universities, Vedant also got a scholarship. It is possible to go back to the university and ask them for more scholarship. For example, if there are two universities that you have finally zeroed in on, and university A is giving you say $100 and university B is giving you say $20, and you really want to go to university B, you can actually go to university B and tell them, you know what, I am getting $100 there. So I would very much want to be there, but my parents will only send me if I get as much or more aid. And surprisingly, the universities do oblige because they want a good student as badly as you want that university. So I thought I'll just leave this little tip because it's always nice. It's not really scholarship shopping, but no harm done, right? I mean, if you can get a better scholarship, it's worthwhile talking to the university about it. Okay, that I thought I shouldn't forget to mention that. That's why I just added that. In terms of the bank structure, in the case of Vedant, so just like Kavita mentioned, we had a savings account and a checking account. The savings account is the account that we transfer the big chunks of money to, which is the fees and all the big ticket items we push into the savings account. And the checking account has a zero balance requirement typically. So children can go down to as much as $5 or $10 or whatever, depending on how they spend it. And their debit cards are linked to the checking account. So now what is the advantage? The advantage is that every time there is a requirement, broadly kids get a sense of how much they require. So they will transfer, say, $50 from their savings account into this little checking account, which is linked to their debit card, and use that regularly for their day-to-day expenses. The second advantage is that since the checking account does not have a minimum balance requirement and the amount is normally very less, if there is a card misplaced or lost, the extent of money you will lose is much lesser. So I found this structure very useful for Vedant, a savings account where we put in all the fees and the big ticket items like rent and all that, and the checking account which he could withdraw into as and when he required. No, and like Kavita mentioned, no, we never had a situation where he said, you know what, please send more money, please send more. Fortunately, that has not happened so far. Initially, it is a little tricky for the kids to budget their expenses. The first year is relatively straightforward because most of the expenses are paid by us. So the residence halls, their meal coupons, all that is taken care of by the parents. So children really need very little discretionary money to spend, maybe for a little get together, for food and basic stuff, little recreation. So the first year is quite straightforward. It's only when they start staying on their own in an apartment that a lot of big expenses start hitting you. So they will actually go grocery shopping, and they need to buy linen, they need to buy stuff for the house. And so that's when that initial maybe a month or two is a little tricky in terms of budgeting what they require. But after that, it's pretty smooth sailing. And in terms of paying fees to the university, just like Mr. Nayan mentioned, yes, it is online. What we do typically, because yes, the dollar has hit 80 already and it is very expensive. So there is a little bit of shopping that you do for your forex rate. We personally, I found that the banks, you may have a great relationship, but commercial banks tend to be very expensive in terms of the rate they give you. So there are a lot of other forex dealers, legitimate dealers who provide better rates. and a fairly seamless process. So once you set up an account with them, which is basically, with the child's I-20, the university letter, the scholarship letter and all that, they set it up for you. Then every time it's a very straightforward process in terms of transferring rupees into that account, and then within a day it gets transferred to the main checking account, savings account of the child overseas. So I found it a very seamless and easy process. Another thing I've done, this we did only in the second year. We also I gave him a forex debit card which we could load, and very clearly the instruction was, do not touch your main bank account for your day-to-day expenses. Use it only for rent and school fees and the big items, and use the forex card instead for your day-to-day expenses. It is easy for them to keep tab also, because you get an SMS, you also get an email. So if you want, for the child's comfort, you might choose that email come to you, or the message come to you, so you're always on top of what is getting spent where. And so if there are areas that you think, you wonder, oh my god, what is this expense, you can always do it immediately instead of waiting long enough. So even if there is an incorrect debit, you're able to guide the child and say, I think there has been an incorrect debit, what's going on.
That's a
So
great tip.
broadly, it's and I think a great way to cut cost is, I think, transferring a larger chunk of money in advance. I think it does help save additional transaction fees every time, because when you transfer money,
Mhm.
the corresponding bank in the US, typically there is a $11 debit every time you transfer. Those are the fees. So to avoid that, because every dollar matters, especially for a student, it may be more prudent to transfer a larger chunk of money, which is why we don't transfer money every month or every fortnight. We tend to operate through the forex debit card route for day-to-day expenses, and the bigger savings account for fees and big ticket items.
Great. Thank
So
you. Those are some
yeah.
really helpful tips. Yes, Mrs. Singhania, do you have anything to add to that?
Really, like this information I got from my elder daughter Unnati, which she gave to a little sister, that you should try to apply for a credit card and maintain a good credit score, so that when you start working, you really have an edge. So this is all I had to say about this. Thank you.
Okay, great. So if you're comfortable doing that, that is also an option for you. I wanted to get to that point, Mrs. Ramya, is what are the different ways of cutting costs? And one of the things that you mentioned that, transfer fees from the Indian bank, for example, to sending to the US bank does cost you. And that is something that you want to consider, maybe sending a lump sum to the savings account, as you explained. I want to ask Mr. Awad that do you have anything to add in terms of what are the different ways of cutting the cost that you experienced in your child's journey?
Yes, before get to that, I would like to add that once the student is there and after first semester, or after a few months when he or she gets adjusted, they should try to get the SSN number as soon as possible. And they only get the SSN number after they find a on-campus job, or then only they can apply for SSN number. And after you get your SSN number, it is much easier to get a credit card or anything. So as soon as you get your credit card, you start building your credit history, and which comes in very handy. If you have a good credit history, it is very important to have a good credit history in US. So that is one thing. And when thinking of cutting cost, normally as an undergraduate, when the student goes there, I think most of the universities for the first semester or the first year, it is mandatory to stay on campus and get the meal plan, like the dining plan. So for first semester, there aren't many ways to cutting costs. Anyway, the students in the first semester, they are not very outgoing, and they don't tend to spend a lot. They try to save every penny. They think more than us about saving money. So that's what happens. But after you move out out of the campus and go get your own place. So there, then they start thinking, the students start thinking, okay, I should get out of the dorms, so I could get cheaper accommodation outside. I could share the rooms with like-minded friends, and there they start cutting their cost on their own rather than you telling them to cut costs. So that's what happens, and they find ways. They find a lot of ways once they get there.
Right. Thank you. I should also add here that every university does have a different policy on housing. So some universities might require the students to live on campus only for the first year, but there might be other universities which would require you to live on campus for more than 1 year. So it really depends on your university's policy, and you want to check that with your university. But these are some really helpful tips. Now, I want to move on to also a very important topic, parental support system, right? We know that US is, not just a very large country, but it's also very, very far. And sending your 17, 18-year-old child, can make you nervous. So I kind of wanted to understand this, we'll start with Mr. Awad here, that what were your biggest concerns sending your child to the US? As you said, you didn't really know anyone whose children were studying in the US, or you didn't really have the friends who can, you can ask them about this. So what were your biggest concerns though?
Well, initially I wasn't really prepared to send her. And I said she was only 17 when she left. She didn't even turn 18. And so my biggest concern was, how would she cope? This is the first time she is gonna live away from us. And we always think of them as a small child, even they grow. So we were really, really concerned to send her, and if she would be able to cope on her own. But once she reached there, um, even I went with her to drop her off, because I wasn't really, I didn't know what is going on there, what would be going on there. But once I visited the campus, and once I met the people on the university, the safety was my biggest concern at the first, before I get there. But once I got there, and they had a lot of seminars. They briefed us about the safety on the campus, how the police presence is always there on the campus. And even like anytime you walk on the campus, you always see a lot of, you feel very safe there. So once I was there, I really got that sense of safety for her, and that concern reduced a lot.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think these are some important points. Even I remember when, when I was doing my doctoral program there, we used to be in the library until 2 a.m., 3 a.m. studying for the exams. And going home, we always would have like a campus shuttle, would make sure that, we safely reach our apartments, even though I used to live off campus. So you really want to check with your university what kind of resources are there for you in terms of making sure that you are safe, no matter at what time of the day or night you are on campus. Yeah. Now I want to, and of course, you mentioned, Mr. Awad, that you travel to the US with your child. So I have this question for Mrs. Singhania, and you can also add, Mr. Awad, if you have anything to add to this. But I want to understand, Mrs. Singhania, that if you did travel with your one of your daughters, I believe, that right. So how do, especially in terms of housing, which is something very, very new, right, to us. We don't understand exactly what is the concept of dorms, and how do you find roommates, and what is the move-in day, which is a very big thing in the US, right? So can you just walk us through that journey of, when you traveled with your daughter, how was that experience?
Yeah, so when I went with Vanshika to Rochester, I was lucky that both my girls had housing on campus all the 4 years. So then they were assigned a room, and they had to apply for it like quite some time in advance. And that is very important because you have to give all the specifications on whether you want double sharing or a single sharing, or I think they also have a triple sharing. So you just have to fill in the form, and you have to give your preferences, and then they allot you the room accordingly. So then she got the room allotted, and when I went there, we have to just set up their room. We have to buy all the provisions, and also the roommate is very important. Like Unnati, my elder one, she was not very happy with a roommate in the first semester, but she just carried on with her. But my younger one, she just reported to the residential life, and then her roommate was changed. So then she was much happier. So then what I mean to say is you should always go and talk to the particular department over there, and then they listen to you, and they just, make you as comfortable as possible. So it is a very smooth process. You just have to apply at the right time, and just give all your specifications very, very clearly. So then you get the rooms what you want. And the roommate is like you, as I said, you can always get her changed if you don't like the roommate. So,
if I may add to that, Mrs. Singhania, can you also share, in addition to what Mr. Awad has already mentioned, in terms of the safety of the students?
yes.
So, when you were there with your child, what were the things that kind of, assured you that, my child is going to be safe? What kind of resources would you like to point out?
They have safe rides on the campus. So whenever the child wants to go to their dorms, they have vehicles moving around all over the campus, and they just get on that, and they are just dropped to their residence. And also they have these phones all over the campus, where if you're in trouble, you just have to pick it up, and then they know where you are, they track you, and they just help you. And they also have specific safety numbers which you have to dial when you're in trouble, and they just rush to you as soon as possible. So that way the safety on campus is very, very good. So no need to worry about it.
That's great. And I'll also add, for students who will be joining in the universities now, don't miss your orientation, because all these aspects
Yes.
are discussed during that orientation week. You get the tour of the university. So you get to actually see all these spots. Where are these, telephone booths located? I even remember that we had a session with the university police team. So you just to make sure that you shouldn't be afraid of the police. You should feel comfortable approaching the police on campus to make sure that you are safe. Before I move on to next question, I wanted to say if Mrs. Ramya, if you have anything to add to this.
The same things about the phone kiosks, and of course, I think in terms of safety, it's also we have to be a little sensible and alert, just like you are anywhere in any city. It could be your building here in Bombay, it could be anywhere. I think it's better to have your antenna up when you're in campus. Yes, there are scores of children. It's a very diverse campus. There are cops, there are safety shuttles, but nothing comes before your own alertness and presence of mind at that point. It's always good to be aware of your surroundings, and and there are certain areas that you read about which are not safe, certain, to try and keep to the, I'm not talking really about campus alone, even once you're outside the campus, maybe stick to the well-lit roads, avoid the roads that are not very well reputed for
Yes, that's right.
regular stuff. So I think that it's the same thing that works in any city anywhere in the world. So I think a little bit of common sense and alertness is important, and please trust in God and pray to God all the time for everyone's welfare.
Thank you. I would like to ask also about housing to Mr. and Mrs. Nair. So, Mrs. Nair, if you can tell us about how was that process for, a graduate student who, in majority of cases end up living off campus. So how was that for Tashna? Was she able to search for an apartment before leaving to go to the US, or how did she find roommates? Can you just, share some experience?
So I will just share this with you that nothing was planned, because her semester was starting pretty soon, and applying for the visa itself took place at the fag end of May. Okay, so that's what it is. We got a IS 120 a little, the I-20 a little late or whatever it was. But I being in properties, I was trying to find out ways and means, because we knew that we could not go along with her. And this is our first experience going out of the country also. So we try to manage that out by, checking out for properties off campus, online, and then, trying to filter out that which is available for the summer. And because summer is basically most of the students, it's a holiday, and but her semester was starting pretty early, 1st of July. That's it. So we tried to see to it that she could land there at least 15 days in advance. And we had, luckily we had a friend who took care of her at the airport, and then from there was with her for next 2-3 days, a couple of days. And then after that, she left to the university site, but off campus, then I had to put her up in a hotel, because the 45 days ka lease was starting after 3 to 4 days time. So I told her, beta, don't worry about it. Check in the hotel. And before leaving, she was in Facebook Connect with the university Facebook Connect, which she got with somebody. And that student helped her out, to get into the hotel accommodation, and later on, after 3 nights of stay, so we had signed the lease also from here itself. But at the same time, she went there personally once she was in the hotel accommodation. I said, instead of taking 2 nights, stay there for 3 nights, but then you can check in your university apartments, wherever you want to check.
Great.
Now, after another first week of August, she has to again check in another apartments, because the new thing will, lease will kick in. Yeah,
That's right.
the new lease will kick in.
That's right.
So
this
obviously,
is, yeah.
it was a challenge for us, but it was like everything was like a question mark. But I think the process there is very accommodated. Yeah, and things sort of fell into place for us.
Great. That's good to know.
It was a challenge for the first timers, I would say. That's it.
Right.
That's
Thank
it.
you. Now, looking at the time, I do want to make sure that I get to all the questions as well. But I wanted to kind of touch upon, and please share if any one of you have this experience. But peer pressure is something that we hear about all the time, and it's important that we address that elephant in the room. So, if your child actually experienced that, what helped them to navigate through that? If any one of you have anything to share, feel free to unmute yourself and share that experience. So if not, do remember that it might happen. Students might feel pressured into taking more classes, maybe because you want to show that you are a performer. Whatever the reason for feeling pressured is, make sure that you discuss that with someone, be it your parents or even the health center at universities offer you various types of emotional support groups or one-on-one counseling sessions. So if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling pressured, you have a way to deal with it professionally. If you do not, feel at any point maybe discussing this with your parents, you do have the health center that where you can get professional help too. So I just wanted to make that point. Now, I want to move on quickly to the next point, where this is an important aspect of communicating with your child, staying connected with the child. So understanding how that process was, because for all of you, your children were going there for the first time, you're constantly worried if everything is going okay with them. But over the period now, what is it that you have learned out of it? what have been the best modes of communication with your children, the frequency of communication, what has not just helped you but actually helped the child, so I would like to get some insights on that. So why don't we start with Mr. Awad here?
Um, well, we are fortunate, like we are now living in the world, like when the technology is so advanced now. So we could now we could communicate with them anytime we want now. So for us, it was like the WhatsApp calls all the time. Like we could like FaceTime or do it on the WhatsApp. And my daughter and her mother, they are like especially my wife, she she's like she wants to stay in touch with her all the time. Like she calls her in the morning, she calls her
It's like for me, I try to get her mood in the morning and try to get her mood in the evening, like her day off. How was her day, what she had eaten, like communicating in that form, like just a bit of the communication with her mood and what you had eat today and how was your day, not in details but just like seeing her face and the communicating a bit was making her mood as well, good. So sometimes if she had really long day, she would just call me, I had a long day and I just go to sleep now. Then I could understand, yes, she had it, but in the morning she will call me in fresh mood. So WhatsApp has been help us a lot. And we had kept our phones, mine and my husband's Indian numbers with the direct calls open. So whenever we feel like we will have, even if the WhatsApp is not working or email is not working, we can get the direct contact, like emergency contact for her. So and one for the first semester, what we did, we had one SIM card, Indian SIM card with her. We kept that SIM card with her and kept it open for the international calls, like roaming. It was with her for the 6 months. We kept it open, so even if something like she's not getting communication, that the SIM card will be there too. So that was the communication part.
But what I liked, what you mentioned is giving space to your child is very, very important. They are
Yes.
on a very different, in a very different time zone. Parents might be constantly worried or wanting to know what, their child is up to, but they're getting used to the new system, getting used to not just the academic system, but also culturally, they are kind of, figuring out things. And sometimes it's not always possible to constantly keep in touch with the parents. And I think the learning lesson here is that parents also have to learn and give that space
Yes.
to their children to grow as well. With that, I think I'm going to move on to the next question, because now, we only have about 15 minutes left in the discussion. And I do want to take up more questions. So what I want to kind of talk about is your experience with the International Students Office. Because a lot of issues, whether it is, advisor mentor issue, or whether it is emergencies, or whether it is, coordinator issues, what role did the International Students Office play? Were you guys in touch with, the International Students Office, or whether, did you have any such experience where your child has fallen sick and you have to, manage that emergency? What was the most relevant resource that you were able to help, and what tips can you give to the students who are going and to their parents? How about we start with Mrs. Ramya?
Yeah, so the International Students Office is very critical. I think right from the word go, the first week when the child reaches campus, they have about a week for international students move in alone, where they introduce you to the International Students Office, the roles, the responsibilities, how they will help you. Very, very important to be in touch with the Students Office for all sorts of things, right? From ensuring that your I-20 is updated, even when you look, apply for SSN, they have a role to play. when you do your OPT, your campus jobs, your internships, they have a very huge role to play because they actually process your work authorization depending on the kind of job role that you get. So I think, yes, the International Students Office is an absolutely important aspect of this whole exercise. Thankfully, so far I've not had to, reach out to them for any emergency situation by God's grace. But in terms of health, like you mentioned, yes, there was a point when my son was a little ill on campus. But yes, the health office, they have a very robust health office there, which took care of him at that point of time. So no cribs as of now. Things seem okay, and yes, very important to give the International Students Office a lot of time for them to process your queries, emails, follow-ups. Because if you need a work authorization for a certain time frame, make sure you submit your offer letter and everything much, much, much in advance, so that you don't end up breaking any rules inadvertently by taking a job off campus when you're not allowed to. Your visa doesn't allow you to do it. So it's important to be in touch with them because they are abreast with all the latest rules. And this was something that was important for us with this whole COVID situation where classes went online, and there was this fear that the visa may not be valid. And so, the International Students Office had a huge role in allaying those fears and ensuring that the right messages went to the authorities and everything was kind of okay.
That's great. So, any of these words that might have sounded, a little alien to students, like what is OPT, what is SSN? So, only one thing to remember that when you reach on campus, the International Students Office has someone called as a designated school official. That is going to be the person who can give you the legal official information related to whether it is your social security number, whether that it is your optional training related instructions or curricular practical training, for on-campus jobs, all of that, the legal aspect, you can go to the International Students Office and get that information. And if I'm not, a lot of, universities even do regular seminars to keep students updated with what are the policies, how to go about it, what kind of paperwork you need, so on and so forth. Guys, we might go maybe a few minutes beyond 7:30. I hope that is okay with you because I do want to take up some questions. I have one last question for the panel. It's about, the cultural assimilation. So here, we talk about how United States is, once you are there, you're almost are ready to become a global citizen because you get to mingle with, people from all around the world, which is very, very fascinating, right? But it also means that to become the part of that community, it can take some time. When you are in a new country, it's a new culture, it can make you homesick. So I wanted to kind of get some, insights from the panel today. What was the experience of your child? If at any point, if they did feel homesick, how did you as a parent, help them out? So can we start with Mr. and Mrs. Nair? If Tashna experienced anything like this, I know that she's just gone in there, but if you have anything to add, please do briefly.
I think more than her, we are feeling the pinch. And I would say Tashna also has a younger sister. So I think Tashna's younger sister and my wife, they are very strong. They are strongly built, I feel so. And I'm a little bit of that emotional type. And emotional type in the sense because I could not go along with my daughter, settle her off, and all these things were there. But looking backwards, and I always make it a point. Of course, we miss her a lot, but she's gone for something good, and she's gone for the future, right? So we have to understand that as parents, and also give them the space and the freedom, because all that that possibly your child has achieved freedom to make his or her own life as of now, and we've got the way paved, sort of
All
thing.
right, that's great. Mr. Singhania, would you like to share something about this?
Yeah, like so what I feel is like once you send your children there, you should just let them choose their friends according to their mental wavelength. So with Unnati, it was like she always had more of American friends, and as of now, like they are still her friends. And now when we went to the US after I think how many years? 6 years of her passing out, and now she still met them. They came from all over the US to meet her wherever we were. And with Vanshika, she flocked mainly with the Indian students. So I think each child just chooses their right type of friends according to their choices. So I think you can just let them be and make their own choices.
I think that's a great advice for the parents.
Yeah.
Real quick, Mr. Awad, if you want to add something to this.
Yes, the kids, they once they get there, there are so many different culture and so many students from all over the world. So for them, this experience is really valuable. Like they in this 4 years, like last 4 years, I have seen my daughter change a lot. Like she has grown a lot, and she has the understanding of all the different culture. Is like it's like she, when I talk to her, she speaks on a different level when I used to talk to her like 4 years ago. So she understand about different cultures. She learned about lot of other cultures. She made a lot of friends from many other countries. I think that had really shaped her well.
Great.
Uh,
I think you've made a really important point that you actually get to see, that personal growth of a child in these 4 years. Real quick, Mrs. Ramna, if you want to add one point to this.
Like Kavita said, let them choose their friends because they are mature enough to make those choices and jam with the right kind of mix. In terms of feeling homesick, there are a lot of clubs and associations available on campus. So if a child is particularly longing for an Indian connection, of course, there are a lot of Indian clubs, there are Indian festivals that they celebrate, there is Indian cuisine available from time to time. And of course, like Manoj and his wife said, since WhatsApp has arrived, I think the child can, reach out anytime and talk to us in terms of, whether they're feeling homesick or not. I think all in all, I think they will find their way. They will find their calling and make friendships for life, just like Kavita was
I think
mentioning.
that's really, really important. So I'm going to
Yeah,
move on to the question answer session. Feel free to switch on your cameras, guys. My first question is regarding, undergraduate students actually. That, sometimes the meal plans on campus can be expensive. Were there, any alternate options for cooking or managing themselves while they were living on campus? Would anyone like to answer that question?
yeah, I can go. Meal plans are convenient because there are slabs available for, it's like slim, medium, and large, like that. So depending on your child's interest, you can decide to choose a meal plan. I found that very convenient because it also helps you various choices on campus. Kids can go to various residence halls, food halls, and eat. And these meal plans are also valid outside campus in college towns, small college towns. So I personally thought meal plan was helpful. Most resident halls also come with very basic kitchen facilities. So there will be one common kitchenette, and if your child is motivated enough, yes, it can make he can make his Maggie or basic sandwich and all that in the kitchen. What I've also found is my son goes to Bloomington, Indiana, which is in the Midwest. It's not one of those big cities like New York where there are a lot of meal options. I was surprised that there are dabba services available. So there
Wow.
are Indian entrepreneurs there who do supply dabbas. My son, for one, is very happy eating local food. We are complete vegetarians, but to be honest, he hasn't struggled, even though he is a complete vegetarian as well.
Great.
It also depends a lot on the kind of importance a child gives personally to food. So there are options and there are workarounds. So I don't think that's too much of a problem. And just the exposure to the the food varieties there from different countries is
Absolutely.
humongous, and you will see your child has really adapted well, and all the stuff that he said he won't eat here, he will end up eating there, whether it be salad or fruit or stuff like that. So should be okay, not
Great,
so much of a problem.
great, great, great.
And yes, there are a lot of ready to eat options available. Parents do send MTR, and there is
I,
something new
I,
I
I,
discovered.
I do remember all
Yeah.
these Diwali packages that my mother used to
Oh
send.
yes, 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 yeah, the care packages, yeah.
That's right. So I'll move on to the next question because we don't have a lot of time left. I do want to get to some of these. So let's address the questions that we commonly get about packing. Give me three things that are most important that you think, that you either had, packed with your child or you did pack for the child when they left. So let's start with Mrs. Singhania. Three things that you think were the most important ones.
So the three things which were most important for my child was, I think, their regular clothes, which they are used to, and a little bit of comfort food, and what else, and maybe like some bath products, some toiletries they are used to. So basically, whatever that they are used to, which will make them feel comfortable. But the woolens and everything I had left for there, and all the electronics also, because they have a different set of
That's right.
plugins and all.
That's right. But if you are carrying an electronic, maybe carry an adapter with you so that you can, it's useful,
Yeah, the
useful for
basics.
you.
Yeah, the basics,
Yeah.
and then they can buy the big what they call it, converters and all over there.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Mr. Awad, would you like to give me three things that you think, could be important while packing?
They should take some basic medicines. They don't really require it, but it's always better to, sometimes the stomach gets upset or just get like a small fever or anything. Like go to your physician and ask them if they could give them. That is one important thing. I thought Roma never needed it, but we gave it with her. Uh, uh, Basic clothes, and don't take electronics from here because the electronics is cheaper there and the plugins are the problems there.
Like buying a laptop from India would be not a great advice to do. You can
That's
buy
right.
cheaper laptop there,
Yeah.
and some we were like, for the first day when they arrived there, when she got her room, the bed sheets was the problem for Roma. Like you should carry, we weren't like aware of the, so bed sheet and some like any blanket or something should be there for the first night, like for first week or first night of the.
Great. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Nair, quickly three things.
Yeah, I wouldn't forget on the Forex card and even some cash because I was very apprehensive whether the Forex card will work. And if it does not work, then I had physically given some dollars. And so that's it. So the monetary requirement is very important. And of course, the clothes. And we were not aware of the electronics, but then just got a new laptop for her. But otherwise, I think, as Mr. Awad has rightly said it, that the electronics are quite cheaper there and of great quality and value. Plus, also fitting to the electrical US standards. That's it.
Great.
Plus, of course, the clothes and not forgetting what Mrs. Awad said, the pillowcases and the bed sheets or blankets rather. That's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Which
All
they are
right.
comfortable in.
Okay, great. Thank you. I will advise though that usually campuses, university campuses close by will have these mega stores where you can actually go and get like fitted sheets that actually fit the mattresses there in the US.
Yes.
Yes.
So don't carry like too much of it. Mrs. Ramya, real quick, any three things that you think would be important to keep in mind for packing?
Very paranoid, so I had a handwritten list of emergency numbers, um, of people in the US that he could contact if needed. It was handwritten because phones can lose charge, they can get lost. So that I thought was very important. Medicines, a little bit of comfort food, and personally, my personal view is just like what you said, Aditi, that I did not send any sheets and all that because the dimensions of the beds are quite different. The college dorms had very specific, they had specifications on the kind of fitted sheets required, which was all available there locally. So most of the shopping was done there locally, especially of the woolens. The Midwest can get really cold, so none of the woolens that you use here in India, especially Bombay, work at all there. So I didn't send any woolens except a light jacket and a hoodie, and he picked everything there. And they had these huge sales just before winter, right? So that's when you get the right woolens. So pretty much this, yeah. Medicines, the handwritten list of emergency contacts, I think very important for me.
Yes. I will also add, I think it's always a good idea to keep the prescriptions if you are carrying the medicines with you. Um, Whether it's basic or any specific prescribed medication that you're carrying, it's always better to have the prescription with you. I think we're going to take one last question now. So let's take last two questions real quick here. One question that we usually get asked is about the health insurance. So did your child take up plan offered by the university, or did you have insurance outside? What worked best for you? Let's start with Mrs. Singhani.
So my daughters had taken the health insurance plan on campus with the medical center there. So they just took it there.
Great, great. Was it any different for any of the other panelists? Because we usually advise students to go with what the university has to offer, for the health insurance. Anyone with a different piece of information that you would like to share? No? Okay, great. What last question, you guys? That I think this is an important question. That do colleges have any mentors or professors whom the students can count on for advice? For both academic or non-academic reasons. Maybe there is a student who might be struggling with a particular class, and if they can go to a mentor or a professor, would you guys have anything to share about that you heard from your child? Anyone who please feel free to unmute yourself.
So I always told my daughters to always connect with the seniors who were just 1 year senior to them, so that they could just give them first-hand experience. And that was really, really helpful for both of them, because they really guided them very well. So apart from the professors, like the seniors also mentored them, and it really helped in their growth.
Great. That is, I think, very important. Anything else that you guys would like to add?
The mentor part, for Roma, like when she went there, there was like a peer-to-peer thing. Like seniors would teach the students who are struggling, and that helped a lot. Like the students learn from other students much quicker than sometimes from the professors. So that helped, and also the mentors. Like when she got for the doctoral studies, the professor who really helped her to understand how the importance of like getting that getting the higher education and not stopping at the bachelor, just on the bachelor's degree. So that's how the mentor really helped her, I would say.
Great, thank you. Mrs. Ramya?
Vedant's university had a mentor assigned to him even before he went. So they had a student mentor who, as soon as the child got the admit into the university, this senior connected with him and spoke to him and took him through the whole process, which was very comforting, because you knew that once you went to campus, there was this senior who you could reach out to for any queries that you had, and you'd already developed a relationship over the last month or so. Likewise, Vedant is a student mentor to another international student, a Sri Lankan student. So I think that buddy system really helps, because children tend to share more with, other students, and they've had similar journeys. So I found that a very useful aspect
That's
as far
really
as Vedant is.
Thank you for sharing that. Mr. and Mrs. Dyer, do you have anything real quick before we end the session?
As of now, my daughter is having a real pleasant experience. As the time goes by, we'll come to know about it.
I will add,
she's really having a very good experience.
So for the graduate students, pursuing masters or PhDs, your graduate student councils are a great support for you. Whether it's academic support or non-academic support, you can always reach out to the graduate student council. They're a great support for you. Mrs. Singhania, did you want to add
Yeah,
something?
maybe just one point. Both
sure.
my daughters had host families. So for that also you get a form from the universities, and you can just mention your likes and dislikes, whether you want a family with kids or without kids. So both of them had host families who used to call them occasionally, take them out for lunches. On occasions, they used to call them, and they also used to store their luggage when they used to come home. So that is also a very good option if the university has it.
That's great. Thank you for adding that. And again, that's why I'll reiterate this. Going for your student orientation is very, very important. That's where you will get to hear about all the unique programs that the university has to offer. Guys, this has been a wonderful panel. Thank you so much for sharing all your experiences. These are very valuable for students and parents, who are ready to begin their academic journey now. Before I close the session, I'll want to remind again that for students, we have one last session coming up in the series on the 28th of July. So make sure that you register for that. And with that, I would also like to thank my EducationUSA team who's been working behind the stage, delegating all the questions. So thank you, and have a pleasant evening, and good luck to all the students who are about to begin their journey in the US university.
Thanks a lot.